All right, let's go.
So, thank you everyone for coming in today. My name is Ryan, and this is,
I'm Terrance.
and today we're going to be talking about sociopaths and manipulators, a little bit about what to do about how they try and manipulate us, how to spot it, how it affects us, and how to get ourselves out of this cycle. And to say a little bit more about both of us. I'm going to go first. My name is Ryan Assi, and I am an engineer by trade. And what I do is a mixture of understanding systems engineering, how to create a system, how to analyze it, how to make sure things don't fail, how to figure out how they're failing, and it ultimately get it to where it should be, a successful project. And I also currently work in the business development realm, where a lot of what I do is talking to companies where we're competing in the ultimate industry space, but sometimes we have to team up in order to win a multi-million dollar contract. And a lot of those conversations is trying to be very clever in understanding what that person's agenda is and what the company is going to do. Because oftentimes they try and get into teaming agreements just to screw you over in the future. And the way that that happens in this business world is extremely close and parallel to the way that Terrance and I have heard a lot of people end up getting dealing with narcissists and sociopaths and manipulators. It's almost the exact same. They have an agenda, they want something out of you, they want to frame the story in a certain way, and we need to understand how to see that coming and how to get ourselves out of it. That's what I do. What do you do, Terrance?
I'm a criminologist by trade. I spent over a decade profiling criminals specifically in Detroit metro area, specializing with crimes against children as well as human trafficking, since Michigan and Ohio have a huge human trafficking problem. Now I kind of brought my, skill set into the private sector, teaching people a lot of the skills I wish that was just taught in school. Because as of right now, there's very few curriculums that teach the art of criminal profiling and the art of really seeing and testing people before we allow them in our lives. And, at this point, I've spoken to thousands of individuals, worked on hundreds of cases, and we bring this all into this group. And, it's really great teaming up with Ryan because both of us have this expertise and, there's no real place for it currently in a lot of modern law enforcement communities. A lot of modern law enforcement is reactive instead of proactive. So our goal is to prevent a lot of problems before they occur by people identifying problematic people.
Mhm.
All right.
So, a little of what we're talking about today, starting out, is framing. And framing is in the context of framing our own beliefs. How do we look at the world? What is the lens through which we interpret what is happening in front of us? And what are our beliefs about what is happening? What are the values that we hold ourselves to? And how do we come to terms with the experiences that we have in our life? Without a strong sense of self and a good understanding of how to look at the world around us, we become highly susceptible to people on the outside who want us to see them and see reality in a certain way so that they can manipulate us into doing what they want for their own agenda. And the most dangerous part about it is those people are looking for what they can get out of you. They're not looking at what you can get out of it and how to make you better and how to make your situation better. And the difficulty is they can be quite persuasive. So if we don't understand how to see it coming, it's very easy to be convinced by it. So when we lack this clear frame, they step in and define our reality for us and can influence what we believe, what we fear, and what we pursue.
Absolutely. So the most keen manipulators I come across, they make you question your reality. until the lie they create ends up fitting your reality. And that's why it's so important to take the time and really understand what is happening when you're around certain people. What are they saying? What are they not saying? How are they trying to influence the way you look at them? How are they trying to influence the way that you look at the world? And whose agenda are they persuading you into? And that's why, like, at the cornerstone of, mental toughness and target hardening, which is really what this is it's preventing you from becoming the victim that many manipulators and sociopaths want you to be. It all starts with a strong frame. All right, let's go to the next slide.
So, with that being said, this is, I know it's a little awkward, but this is an AI generated image. And when we think about salesmen and people are sly, I know that the standard or the most common first thing we think of is salesmen just trying to get anything out of us as a car salesman. And so when we go buy a car, if we don't have a clear understanding of a few things like what car I want, what problem I want it to solve, what problems I do not want, and the advantages that I need, as well as a budget. If we don't have a clear frame of what our goals are and what we're looking for and what we're not willing to buy, it's very easy to walk into a dealership and have somebody convince us to get what serves their bottom line.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what the problem of it is. So, going directly to the slide, what does this person want me to see? So, in this context, the salesman wants me to look at and see a beautiful Hummer EV. What does this person want me to feel? They want me to feel that this vehicle would be a benefit to my life. What do they want me to accept as a fact? They want me to accept all this goodness but not see any of the problems that might end up happening. And so I'm very connected with a lot of people in the car industry and a lot of my clients who overpaid for vehicles during COVID-19.
Hmm.
And especially if you understand like the Hummer EV cycle, some people paid $75,000, $100,000 over sticker for that car. And that car has dropped like a rock, especially in 2025. You have people trying to trade them in, and they might have over $90,000 in negative equity. And, this is becoming more and more popular with talking about online is people who are just completely underwater in car loans.
Hmm.
And a lot of times this happens because we allow other people to think for us and to steer us into situations that if we would get a pencil and paper and start writing things out, might would have not made sense at all.
Hmm.
But one of the dangers of life is trusting strangers to steer our ship.
A car salesman will not tell you the problems with the car unless you ask about them. And even then, sometimes they'll lie. So if you don't do your research beforehand, it's very easy for somebody to come to you and paint a picture of how great this Hummer EV is, how much space you'll have for the family, how much it can tow, the fact that you get a government kickback because it's an electronic vehicle. The I know for this model, the frunk space is supposed to be like you could tailgate out of the front too. But what they won't tell you is all the downsides. And so if you're not aware of what their agenda is and the right questions to ask and how to verify them, they're going to make you think that this is the best thing for you. But really, their ultimate agenda is make the sale and get the commission.
1000%.
So when we're dealing with people and we don't know who they are or what they want from us, they are trying to make the sale to get you to do what they want from you, but they are not telling you. So you have to understand how to read it.
Yeah, very true. It's one of those things where there are certain careers where it's really hard to tell the truth because your livelihood depends on making a sale. And that takes strong character. And a lot of people end up getting fired or they end up going into business for themselves just because of that problem. But we'll talk about more of that in some of the later slides so we can continue.
Okay. One of the reasons why we have trouble with our relationships is from something what we call low effort relationships. It can be very difficult to understand the standards that we should set for ourselves or what we should be looking for in order to get and build the relationship that we deserve. And it comes from low effort relationships. And when we're talking about low effort, we're talking about something called relationships of convenience. And this simply means that whatever you think the relationship you have with somebody, it is purely based on the fact that it is easy and convenient. This could be that you happen to work together. It could be that you share a hobby or you end up going to the same place all the time. And so that relationship is built on the fact that this person doesn't really have to put any effort in order to see you or talk to you. And when we have friends or family like this that we consider close to us, and we think that this is a good relationship, this is almost like teaching us that this is the not just the bare minimum, but it's even like how things should be. But that's not the case. When we want to build a genuine relationship and steer clear of people wanting to manipulate us, one of the things we want to look for is not high effort or high maintenance, but the fact that they're putting in effort. And what effort looks like is texting you, calling you, saying, "Hey, I thought about you. Let's meet up." Taking the proactive reach forward to say, we haven't met up for a while. Let's go get dinner. Let's go to a movie. Let's go play basketball together. Let's do something. And when they haven't heard from you a while, they reach out. This something that is not low effort means that if it becomes an inconvenience, they will be inconvenienced for you. Meaning when you call them up and you say, "Hey, my car broke down. I'm like 30 miles away. You're the only one I know, in the area. Can you come help me out?" They don't get mad at you for calling. They don't get mad that their relationship with you means that they might need to go and help you out, even if it means being late to dinner or not, playing a video game or maybe having to reschedule on another friend because you're in need. That is the type of effort that is a bare minimum for relationships that last decades and bare minimum for something that you should be looking for when wanting to get into a long-term committed relationship. And like I
Absolutely.
said, just to recap the slide, the opposite of low effort is not high effort or high maintenance. It is simply somebody who is willing to be inconvenienced and puts you as some sort of priority in a reasonable fashion.
Absolutely. Yeah, you touched on that one pretty good. So I'll go through this. So when we're dealing with inviting people in our life, there's a concept that's really important. It's called hire slowly. So everyone should look at themselves as their own company. You have your own business. I have Terrance Findley LLC. Ryan is Ryan LLC. When we bring people into our life, it's almost like you're going into business with that person. You don't, you wouldn't just hire someone after one interview and you don't read their resume, you don't check up on anything, you're not looking at any of their contacts, you're not giving them a skills assessment. We wouldn't do that. I know me as a business owner, one of the most important parts of business that I had to find out was to really spend time vetting people. My mentor said it best to me. He said, "You hire your own problems." And that's what often happens in the world is that when we don't vet people, we hire them into our life as a problem. And so this is going to be the four stages with smart connections. One is clarity. So know yourself first. And when I say know yourself, with my clients, one of the things we do is we create a life program. And it's extremely difficult. Most people won't do it, but all the stats say that the greatest way to achieve your goals is you got to write them down and you come up with action plans for it. So we start deciding what kind of life do they want? Where do you want to live? What kind of relationship do you want to have with your family? What kind of relation, if you have kids, what kind of relationship do you want to have with your kids? How important is money in your life? How much money will you need? What kind of car do you want to drive? How many vacations do you want to go on? It's a time consuming process. But what happens is it's so much easier to reach a goal if you spell out what that goal is. So then the actions and intentions flow with the goal. So again, start with yourself first and what kind of life you want to have. Next, when we're out in the world, we need to observe people. Watch before you welcome. That's one of the problems with online dating is it's very hard to observe somebody before you bring them into your life. And online dating is essentially full of professional pretenders because we're on display. People are trying to put their best foot forward. But because of that and the competitive nature of it, it's hard for people to be honest about their actual realities and how they're living. We're going to cover that in another, in a whole nother class, but the observation is extremely important. Do you want to handle the last two, Ryan?
Absolutely. When we're talking about discernment and testing compatibility, not just chemistry, I wanted to touch on the difference between chemistry and compatibility. Chemistry is also often seen as the way that we interact with each other seems easy, flawless, fun to be around. We don't grind each other's gears. This is often what chemistry is thought of. And a lot of people, when they're looking for somebody, the first type of chemistry that they think of is humor. Like, does the person have this same type of humor as me? Are they funny? Right? And what some people think of when chemistry, which is moving more towards compatibility, is like not just how do we get along, but do we work well together? And that's where we need to be focusing on. What does it mean when we say work well together? Do we solve problems well together? Do we work towards goals properly? And this is more what we mean by compatibility. Are our long-term goals compatible? Meaning, can we work on them together at the same time and they're not mutually exclusive? Do they mean the same things to us? And are we working towards it, our goals, in a similar fashion and a similar moral structure? How well do our strengths and weaknesses balance each other's? And do we lift each other up or smash each other into the ground? This is more what we're talking about compatibility. So instead of starting with chemistry, we should be discerning how are we compatible with each other. Now, with that being said, obviously, if somebody really just grinds your gears, like your personalities clash, I mean, sometimes we know from the beginning that, hey, this person and I, even if we have similar goals, similar ideas about life, maybe I don't want them to be a romantic partner, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that we're focusing on compatibility more than we are chemistry, because you can have a best friend or somebody that you like getting along with and doing things for fun, but when it comes down to it, every single day we have more problems than we can think of. And every few years we can look back at ourselves 5 years ago and say, man, I was really naive. I thought life was complicated and difficult. And the longer I've lived, all it's done is become more complicated and difficult. So by focusing on that compatibility for a long-term life partner, that is how we're setting ourselves up for success.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking about investment, this is at the stage where we don't quite know the person. We're not sure of who they are or what they're doing. So when we say grow what's mutual and release what's not, if somebody is compatible and wants the same things we do, and we have discerned that there is enough compatibility and chemistry and drive for the same things, we want to put the energy into those type of people and those goals. We don't want to waste our energy on people that we can already determine are not on the same path and purpose as us and do not want the same things as us.
Very true.
Anything you have to add,
Oh
Terry?
no, we can keep it moving. You
Wonderful. So, when you're on that path and purpose, when you are very aware of who you're compatible with, you start to pay more attention to the people that help you get there. And what that looks like is becoming part of a community that is meeting up and enjoying life and enjoying that similar path and purpose. This is the Florida chapter of one of the largest and fastest growing car communities in the nation. And as you can see here, not only are there a ton of men, but there are a ton of women in this as well. And they are genuinely happy because no matter what industry you are in that made you successful, the people here understand the hard work and they share a similar hobby. And it's one of the best places to not only help others get to where you are, but to learn from other people who have already become successful in a similar path and purpose. So while you're getting into communities that help you and that you enjoy being a part of and have the same compatibility as you, and you're happy here, the people who are happy are your friends or people you should be around, and the people who are angry are the people who are jealous and end up being your enemies because you improving does not take away from anyone else's success. So the only threat that your improvement is to your enemies.
1000%. I heard a quote a long time ago from someone, and he said, people will forgive you for everything except being successful. So if you're living the life you want, if you're starting to make changes in your life, you're taking your health serious, maybe you're getting a personal trainer, getting a dietitian, talking to an accountant, figuring out your life. Those are the times in which the people who are not really on the same page with you start showing themselves. As you start making your life better, as you start maybe spending less time with individuals that are not on the right side of what's good for you, that's when you might hear the whispers of somebody telling you you're doing it wrong, or you might fail. Or I know you say you're trying to drink less beer. No, 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 let's go out on Friday or Saturday. Those are the times to really watch people when especially when you're headed on the path of becoming the type of person you want to be. The people that are dragging you down, telling you it's not going to work out, they are basically unveiling their true intentions. And that's why it's very important to be around individuals, especially as we get older. We need to be individuals that we can grow with,
Hmm.
not just growed up with.
Hmm.
Because like we talked about kind of earlier, it's easy to get complacent and just say, hey, I'm used to this person. I've known this person for 20, 30, or 40 years. But what often happens is that we underestimate how easy it is to find better friends. We really underestimate that. That when you go get around communities, when you get around areas where people are trying to be the best version of themselves, everyone's going through this process of shedding friends, of gaining better friends, of getting rid of their maladaptive behaviors. People are so many of that's why like I love this car group is that and there's other groups out there. It's just I grew up, really liking cars and Ryan, we all drive cars together, is that the stories are so similar regardless of age or ethnicity. And people had to believe in themselves when other people didn't believe in them.
Hmm.
And it's just those times of struggle, those times of not knowing if you were going to be successful, not knowing if when you started that business it was gonna work out. When you signed up and said, "Hey, I think I want to be a nurse. I want to do this." You didn't know if you were gonna make it. And those stories, they mean so much to people that had to persevere. And some people started off with with success already given to them, but most of the individuals that you find in a lot of these communities for personal development, everybody had to go through this lonely chapter. And we're going to talk about that in the future, in a later slide, but it's that lonely chapter that really brings us all together.
Absolutely. And the main point in this is that no matter where you're starting from in life, it's the process. So no matter how far you are from your goal, there's always hope because there's a part of it that is within your hands, and the process is what will take you to your success. So, and no matter how far you are from there, you just got to keep moving on in the process consistently. That type of effort for yourself to get better and find out how to get better if you don't know is the similar shared experience of success from many of the people that Terrance and I talk about, as well as the people in these communities. Some of them started farther along in life than many of us, but that process is what brought them there.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to touch on real quick before we get into the lonely chapter is what we often see when we start focusing on ourselves and understanding the distractions that take us away from our goals is that people don't understand. And our enemies, the people who are angry at us improving ourselves, often have this type of look. It is a fake smile where they're not looking at you, they're looking through you. They're envious. They don't like that you are doing something or capable of doing something that they cannot or will not do for themselves. And when they see that, they get angry. It almost as if your success is taking away from their success. And that's what we need to be careful of, the way the people close to us respond to us working on ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we can just move forward with that because that's so I'm this is a movie that I think hits home what happens when we bring people in our life too quickly. And every presentation we want to highlight at least one movie. And it for me it's the hand that rocks the cradle. Because in this movie, you have a family that brings in a nanny into their household without truly vetting this person. And over the course of the movie, the person is starting to erode and destroy the foundation of that family. It's the essence of the hand that rocks the cradle. That's the person that is going to control the next generation and control the minds of the next generation. And this is a good warning for people that when just because somebody approaches like a friend, it means you still have to watch out for them. So people without a strong frame are easily influenced by individuals like this, overly accommodating. They're often confused about who those individuals really are. And so manipulators exploit this lack of clarity and they use this confusion to infiltrate your life quickly and seamlessly. And that's another thing is be very careful about somebody that just wants to be your friend off rip. They just want to be part of your life so quickly. This is usually a sign to step back and just watch. Because especially, as we grow up, we should be wary of individuals. Not saying paranoid, but we should be kind of wary about just immediately opening our doors to people because when you open your door to somebody, you open you also open your door to their problems as well. And many of the people I work with, I know me personally, I have a small circle of people. I don't need 100 friends. You give me 4 or 5 solid individuals, and that's going to keep your phone ringing consistently.
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to point out as well is manipulators take a facade. It's very easy to put on an appearance because most people don't take just a little more time than everyone else to look closely at what they're doing and they're saying. So it's very easy to stand upon the credibility of titles or simply saying they are somebody or that they do certain things. And that's what can make it very dangerous is if we are used to taking people on their word and not taking just a few seconds, a few minutes, some extra time to really evaluate somebody, we fall victim to that facade.
Exactly.
So when Terrance was talking about be careful of people who really want to be your friend, be careful. But the question to ask is why? Why is this person so interested in me and what do they know about me? That's the real question. It could simply be that you do have something in common. They've heard good things about you and you have a good reputation, but you need to find out. You need to find out why this person is so interested in you in your life. And one thing we didn't put on this slide is think about the information that they want out of you and what you're asking in return and whether they're giving it. If somebody wants to come to my house, that information is where I live. If they want to know what I do for work, they can find out a lot about me. Are they answering the same type of questions? And if they're asking me, why am I even entertaining the answers yet? What reason do I have to start giving this stranger a lot of information about me?
Absolutely.
So, people with a facade who are trying to make you see the world in their frame of reference because you may not have a good understanding of your own frame of reference are the ones that start to control your beliefs. One of the quickest ways we can evaluate our situations or where we are in life or what our relationship looks like with a certain somebody is to start thinking about what we think or what we believe and why. Can I remember if I have a random fact in my head or a belief, who taught it to me? Can I remember where I got it from or the rationale that led me to believe something? And if I can remember that, start understanding the credibility of that source. Was that a good source or was it just I took some stranger at their word and now I have some opinion of the world or some opinion of somebody else? Am I basing my understanding of people on gossip or am I basing my understanding of people on facts and what I've observed? And if I can't do that, if I don't understand, then I might be a victim of believing what other people tell me about the world rather than experiencing it for myself and generating my own opinion and generating my own goals. If I'm not playing my own game, life my way, then I'm subject to being a pawn in somebody else's game. Because if I don't know where I want to go and how to get there, then I will be tricked into thinking that what other people tell me to do is getting me somewhere without the realization that I'm going nowhere and doing nothing for me, but I'm doing all the work for them and I don't even know what it is. And one of the easiest ways that manipulators do this is focusing on your emotions and playing to two things. One, your ability to forget, and number two, your ability to forgive. And one of the easiest ways to see that things don't line up is by recording or writing things down. Make it difficult for you to forget. When you learn something, write it down, record it, put it somewhere. When you're getting to know somebody, if they're good for you, if they're an actually good connection for you, this actually helps you remember somebody very well that you want to continue to be in your life. And if they shouldn't be in your life, it helps you understand that they shouldn't be in your life. Because what you're going to start to understand is now that I'm not relying on my memory, um, I can actually see what they've done. They say certain things, they do certain things. Do they line up? Hey, they have screwed me over 6 times in the last month. How did they do it? Once you start writing it down, you realize, wow, they're not a good friend at all. Wow, like, why would I ever let anyone else do this to me? You might start realizing that they prey on your ability to forget and they prey on your ability to forgive because they might just be extremely charismatic and very nice. And out of the kindness of your heart, you want to believe the best in people, but they're taking advantage of it. So when we're doing business deals, when I'm doing business deals, I'm thinking about whether we want to team with the company for a multi-million dollar contract. Everything that we can expect them to do and what we're going to be held to do has to be written down in a contract. If it's not written down, you best expect they might do something to hurt you. Or maybe not even intentionally, but there's nothing you can do to rectify it. So just like entering into a business contract, the way we think about relationships is what can I write down to justify my understanding of this person? And if this doesn't line up on paper, I need to understand why. And if I can't come up with a reason that it makes sense in life, you don't always get closure. You may not be able to answer that, and that doesn't mean that that is a bad person. It doesn't mean they're bad for you. It could just mean I don't know who this person is, so I shouldn't let them closer to me. That's it.
Absolutely. Just like one of the comments was talking about love bombing. Be very, very concerned with someone that is, because what you're looking at is disproportionate attention. So why is someone so into someone after they've met them for a short period of time? And it's almost like if you logically play this out, this is the type of person that should be getting taken advantage of out in the relationship world. If you
Mhm.
just fall in love with somebody after a week or two, this person should have like come face to face with failure over and over again because you're going to attract predatory people. But often love bombing is a tactic. It's a tactic. Or it could be a sign that this person lacks certain self-esteem. So it's like you show someone attention and then they go all in. But these are not qualities that are going to help a relationship last long term. Because both people, to the best of their ability, have to go in there healthy. Because relationships are difficult, especially romantic relationships, and especially as we grow. So either we grow together or we grow apart.
Absolutely. And look, people move at different speeds. What we're trying to talk about is from a compatibility perspective, but it's not just that. It's if they do not know you, then what do they mean by they love you? And I've spoken this about this a little bit before in one of our previous events, which is the difference between love and infatuation and how what love means as a form of action and how to build it with somebody. So I've heard from many people that love doesn't make sense and you can't rationalize it. And if we focus on that, if we focus on a relationship built on this emotion of love, you cannot rationalize it and you cannot explain it, then at the end of the day, there is no reason for that relationship to exist past an emotional state. And if I'm focusing on an emotional state, then my emotions can be changed by people and situations. And just as much as I want to say I was in love or I think I was in love with somebody, I can quote unquote fall out of love. Or I can choose to stop loving them because they're a horrible person who threatens my physical safety. Or I could even get a mental disorder where I can't get out of this idea that this person is amazing because I love them, but they're hurting me and I'm unsafe. I believe Stockholm syndrome, correct, Terrence?
Right.
Correct. So it's not about the emotion and love. A relationship needs to be built in a correct process in a correct manner. And the way we build these relationships is the same way we filter out relationships that we should not be in. And when we're talking about love bombing, it goes back to what is that person's reason? If they are up in the clouds about you and this isn't making sense, then it doesn't make sense. We can look at it from two sides. It could make all the sense in the world to the other person, but if it doesn't make sense to you, you need to make your choices based on what you can understand.
Yeah. It goes back to going with your gut. And so many cases I worked on, that feeling in your gut is telling you something that you can't fully articulate with your mind yet, but you feel it in the gut because there are cells down there. There are safety brain cells down there.
Mhm.
And it's so important to listen to yourself. If you're getting a bad feeling, it's time to move. It's time to go. And, in so many cases I worked on, what was so hard for the victims was the knowledge that they had a bad feeling about someone. They had a bad feeling about a situation. But so often with modern society, we are conditioned to do what other people tell us to do, or conditioned to do what the majority around us is doing, even if the majority is misinformed or uninformed. Yep. So let's move in.
So again, if we are not getting what we want and we're not where we want to be, that's okay. The process to getting better is going to necessitate failure because none of us are perfect, nor were we born perfect, nor may we ever attain perfection in what we do. But the repeated failure is helpful to us because it tells us how and why we're failing. And if I'm failing, but I'm changing my approach and I'm failing the same way, I know that what I'm doing is not instrumental into changing my situation. And when I do change my approach and I fail, but I fail in a different manner, now I know that I'm on the right track, but I need to be looking for something else.
Absolutely. Well, you go back to it, failure is information. One of the reasons that a lot of times we don't get the result we want is because we're not analyzing why we fail. We just keep moving and going from place to place to place. This is why so many people struggle with romantic relationships. They never take the time to decide why is my relationship life not what I want? Is it the people I'm attracted to? Is it the places I go? Or is this an issue that I have with me? Am I self-destructive? But often a solid, real 30 minutes of honest reflection could change the trajectory of your life. But it's often so hard for us to go back and just deal with the fact that we're not perfect. Yeah. This is an example I kind of wanted to use. If you saw the Spider-Man No Way Home movie, it was a perfect understanding of like that reflection point where the main problem that Peter Parker had in the beginning of the movie is that he was extremely arrogant. He didn't listen to people. But in all the previous movies, things had worked out for him by pure happenstance. But he didn't really have a system of solving his problems. So what happened is he came face to face with failure. And then how did he deal with it? He wanted to quit. Luckily, in the movie, you have two other versions of Spider-Man that are there. So the one in the middle had gone through similar failures and he was still moving forward. Wasn't completely healed, but he was still moving forward. The third part And the ultimate version of the character was Tobey Maguire's, where he had gone through the process of healing, discovered that failure is part of being a hero, and he had built that mental toughness. So that's why I think it was such a good movie. Any thoughts, Ryan, or we keep going?
Uh, just one last thought on this, which is other than what actually happened in the movie, uh, if you don't understand why you have the beliefs and emotions you do, and you don't have a set goal and understand what you need to do to achieve it, then just like these Spider-Men are pointing fingers at each other, all wearing similar suits, then you're going to end up like the five closest people around you spend the most time with. They're going to determine who you are. And all of their habits and vices, most likely you're going to take on as well. And so you can choose to spend time around the people that you've always spent around time with, no matter what. Or if you spend time around people that are similar to you or similar to who you want to be, and have the ability to teach you or bring you up in your path and purpose, then you are more likely to be successful.
Absolutely.
But as you're going about that and getting rid of and cutting distractions, we end up in what's called the lonely chapter of our lives. And the lonely chapter is when we've started to understand that most of the things that we've probably done in life were simply entertainment or distractions. And when we cut out those distractions, which may look like not going to the bar every weekend, or not playing pickup games with certain people, or not going to the concert hall once a month, or not going to our favorite hangout spot, or hopping online on video games every single night for 2 or 3 hours, we're going to be spending a lot less time with the people that we used to spend time with, even though we might have called them our friends or family. And this is where it starts to get lonely because we're just getting a little uncomfortable, and we long for what we have been doing our whole life that's been making us comfortable. So when we become aware of a misalignment between the where we're living our life and what our future goals are, then we understand a little clearer what we need to let go of. But that brings that space in between where we were and who we used to be and where we want to go in the future. That space is the lonely chapter. And where we attract aligned individuals to what we're looking for here is making sure we don't go back to those distractions and those spaces that didn't help us. And in order to do that, we need to understand that one of the two biggest things we need to have as characteristics is humility and coachability, because the people who can help you are your coaches. And when they want to coach you, they're looking for somebody who's willing to be humble and say, I'm bad at this. I don't know. And then, can you help me? But being coachable also means putting in the work. So, really quick, like I come from the realm of sports. I used to be a goalkeeper in the Olympic development program, played semi-professionally. And the people that I was surrounded with weren't necessarily the best technical players of the sport. They were not the best athletes in the pure sense of the word. They were the best teammates.
Mm.
Those are the type of people that coaches and mentors outside of the realm of soccer and sports, even in business, they're looking for people who have a basic level of understanding and ability to work forward and learn, but be coachable. And they're also looking to help people because they want their own legacy. They want to bring up other people into this and let that live on through what they've learned and what they're giving to the world. So we need to be humble. We need to be coachable. We need to be open to being a little bit uncomfortable. But the best part about that is that you have more time to dedicate to the people who can help you. And that first few weeks or that first month, that time is what you use to get to know them and learn more about how you can get to be where you want to be. And then that discomfort helps launch you forward, and every success you have makes it easier to move forward.
Absolutely. I think the only other thing I would just add is when we're talking about coaches, we're talking about people that have done this. They
Yeah.
have gone through the struggle, they have gone through that tunnel, and they have that expertise. Far too often, I know in my past,
Hmm.
I would go to people that were around me for information,
Hmm.
regardless of whether they knew what they were talking about. And that was one of the hardest things for me is just getting comfortable making new connections. It's like
Hmm.
if I want to understand weightlifting, I need to go talk to a good personal trainer. If I want to get my nutrition together, I need to go talk to a nutritionist. I need to talk to the best lawyer I can.
Hmm.
When you start running your business, you need to get an accountant. There's all these things you have to do. And one of the hardest parts is going to the people that know. But it actually changes your life because then the more you talk to your friends or your family or people around you who are not experts and ask them for their opinion, the more you open that door for their opinion and for them to critique, regardless of what they know or not. So just like when I'm working with a client and you're married or you're in a serious relationship, one of the healthiest things you can do is you don't talk about your relationship with strangers. You don't talk about your relationship, the fine points of your relationship with your family. You really don't.
Hmm.
Because what often happens is they put their input in, irregardless of whether they've ever been successful in a relationship in their life. And that's why it's important to have a solid network of individuals. So what we're talking about takes time and it takes effort. The amount of effort, the amount of time it's going to take depends on the effort. But when I want to talk about my relationship or something, I'm going to talk to an objective advisor who's going to help me look at the situation and say, what are you not doing? What is points of improvement? But their goal is to help me see reality, not just make it seem like I'm winning. Because if I think I'm winning all the time, the relationship isn't going to work. I don't know. On a brief thing, Ryan, what have you come across, especially with a lot of clients or just over the years? Because I found that, you know, so often we're talking to people about our business, and it doesn't often help us because we're talking to individuals who they haven't figured their own life out.
All the time. We hope that our friends or our family, they're people that we like to spend time with, can help us. And we ask for advice, but we end up asking advice from the people who are close to us, not the people that can help us. And what I end up seeing, like, I'm going to give a really good example, car example.
Hmm.
Car guys have friends who like driving, let's say 90s Honda Civics, right? Old Toyota Celicas, stuff that lasts and is tried and true. And they think that the cool car they want is something like that. And then they drop 20K. Then it breaks. They drop another 10K to fix it. And over the next 6 to 8 years, they drop 30K to modify this car, and it's still not what they're looking for. And somebody told them, if you have a cool car, people are gonna think you're cool. People are gonna buy into your business, and you're gonna have a ton of fun. But it ends up sitting in your garage, and you're working on it every weekend instead of driving it. And people find it more obnoxious than anything else because it's too loud. Rather than realizing within a few years you spent 60K on a car, and had you had talked to the right person who can tell you what other businessmen actually like and what's going to make you better connections and what's going to be fun to drive and even more reliable, is save up for an extra year or two and get an old Porsche,
Sure.
get an older Mercedes. Your maintenance costs will be higher, but the overall spending is not going to be as bad. And I've seen it time and time again on career choice, choice in relationship. People who have been told this is how you get married, and over the course of 10 years, they have three divorces. It is heartbreaking to see. And it's not because they're a bad person. It's most often that they're taking advice from people who have no reason or credibility to give them advice that would actually help them.
Agreed. So I'm looking in the chat right now. It says, what if you don't have relationships? So the question I'm going to ask is why? So if you're, let's just say over the age of 18, 20, 22, why don't you have good relationships? And if you solve that problem, you solve a lot of your life. Because what often happens is we involve ourselves in distractions.
Mhm.
We just involve ourselves in distractions. So we don't form strong relationships with people. Now, I mean, I come across clients all the time and they want to connect, but one of the main ways to connect is you got to get off the internet. You got to deal with people. It's the people I'm attracted to. I can't find. Okay. All right. I don't mind doing spending a little time. So the people you're attracted to, you can't find them. Why? What are you attracted to? Like, I mean, seriously, it's as simple sometimes as just going on Chat GPT. Bec we don't use the internet as a tool a lot of times and get specific and say what type of people do I want to be around and what type of person would I have to become for that to happen. Like we're like I know I had to do a lot of work. I'm from Detroit. Most of my friends are in jail or dead. Almost all my friends that I grew up with are in jail or dead. Basketball saved me. Basketball and cars. So instead of being on the streets, I was at car clubs and looking at cars. I was getting better at basketball. But the probably the greatest variable that I saw growing up, which was going to determine whether you gave your life to crime or not, was your ability to deal with loneliness. Because it's hard not doing what everyone else is doing. And that's hard.
Mhm.
Um, we'll go through some of the comments at the end, but there's always a way. Like it just depends on how much time we want to spend working on ourselves. Because often we don't know where to find people. And when we go to find people, we don't know how to connect with them because we really don't know about them. What are you going to say, Ryan?
No, absolutely. I was just thinking about how to answer because I think some of these would be interesting to speak with the person who put that comment in or get a little bit more dynamic stuff. So let's get through the rest of this and then I'll have my comments.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So in it in answering some of those comments goes towards a previous event that we did and future events, which is how to actually find who you're looking for, but also how to genuinely connect to people. So when we're actually in front of somebody and we're looking to make a genuine connection or learn who they are to even figure out, is it worth my time? Is Are we bragging about what we've accomplished, or are we being truthful about the process? Because if we're going to brag about what we've done, this is like fluffing up your feathers and saying, look at me, look how awesome I am. I have all these things. But a relationship is not about what you have and more so about who you are. And details about who you are found in the way that you put effort into your goals and persevere through the obstacles and issues in life, not necessarily what you've accomplished. And sometimes those great accomplishments are in your future and you're still in the phase of, I'm failing, but this is what I'm doing about it. I failed again, but this is what I learned. And the genuine connection and where you really start to understand another person, where they understand you, lies in these conversations. So when you're in front of somebody, Remember earlier we talked about the manipulator, about the hand that rocks the cradle, about that facade. That facade is often built upon the back of I'm telling you how awesome I am and what I've done, but I won't tell you how I did it. Let's not dive deep into the specifics of my past. I'm just telling you I'm an awesome person. Yeah, I make all this money and I have a BMW. Yeah, I get to travel a lot. Yeah, I have this awesome position. But unless you understand how they got to vice president of a company or how they earned the money for that BMW or why they're traveling a lot, you may not understand that they are a professional manipulator and throw people under the bus in their job in a very sly way where they move up the chain, or that they steal money from people, or they run a shady business on the side. So we don't want to look only at the accomplishments. We want to look at the process and what type of person they are. Because the way they handle moving towards their goals and their perseverance and the effort put in is a foreshadowing of what you're going to look forward to or hate in the future with a relationship with them.
Absolutely. You covered everything on that one.
You got this one, Terrance.
Yeah. So this is the kind of conversations I'm talking about. So when you're trying to build connections with people, you have to step into their subjective reality. And one of the ways to do it is ask questions other people never thought to. So, one day I talked to my wife and I asked her about growing up. And I said, okay, what is a conflict that really mattered to you growing up that you haven't talked about with a guy before? And she was telling me she grew up being a fan of Bratz and that the Bratz girls did not like the Barbie girls and they would go at each other. And it created like a good 35 to an hour conversation. And one of the things about connections is that makes connections so easy if you understand the science of it is a lot of times people are not used to people being interested in the person they were. People are often interested in the person in front of them, but not how that person got to that point. So if you can go, there's so especially for some of my women clients, they're like, I don't know much about men, I don't know this. I'll give them a list of like 5 topics that men talk about all the time. That if you just have basic knowledge in them, it's amazing. On the other end, with men, 90% of men don't wear cologne. And of the men that wear cologne, a lot of them don't get one for their scent profile. A lot of guys they don't wear pants that fit. They kind of fall into the fold of all the other people around them. They don't talk about their knowledge, skills, and abilities, but even more, what are their principles? If if you put yourself out there and start talking about what matters to you, the people, let's say most of the room doesn't care. All you need is 1 or 2 people that do care. But a lot of times, great individuals are right in front of us, but we don't notice them. And they don't notice us because we don't send those signals out there, because no one ever taught us how to send those signals out there. But that whole world is a language. But
Mhm.
once you understand how to read that language, it's so easy to find individuals that are on a very similar path as you. Because we're short on time, let's go ahead and continue.
Oh man.
Oh, that was
Um,
a movie. That was a
this was
movie.
an interesting movie, and of course, at the bottom it says "Dance with the Devil." Terrence and I have heard so many people praising this movie, and it's interesting because the people we've heard praise it for things that, when you look a lot closer, are really disturbing and things that you wouldn't want to have happened to you. So, to give an example, movie spoiler, right? One of the main character is the son of a preacher, and he has even given his own sermons, and he wants to skip town to go play music at a basically a bar. That's what he wants to do. And he's warned, right? If
Hmm.
that what was the line, Terrence? I don't want to misquote it.
Which part? Which line?
About knocking on his door.
You talking about the dance with the devil, that line?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he said if you keep dancing with the devil, he's gonna follow you home.
He's gonna follow you home. And so what ends up happening is he is supposed to be a very religious man, but turns his back on everything that his father told him not to. And just one small thing that's idolized from that movie is he's a virgin who falls in love with this woman he meets on the same night, knows nothing about her, doesn't really know her well, um, has sex with her, even knowing that she has a husband. So she cheated on her husband and didn't bring him with her with this dude she just met. And at the end of the movie, this dude is in his 60s, 70s, near death, and he owns a concert hall and he names it after her. And so when people were praising this show of love and show of affection for this woman that he fell in love with 60 years ago when he had the best night of his life, it's kind of like, hold on. But the main character helped a woman cheat on her man, and she's not that good of a person if she's cheating on her husband and doesn't care about it. And he's so tied to this night of sinning that he can't move past it, and he's still stuck to this woman. So we're now idolizing this idea of love without a reason of why it exists or what's going on or if it's even good for the person.
Well, it kind of goes back to the original Titanic movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, which is kind of hilarious because I mean he's still not settling down. But it's where we fall in love with this feeling or this image of someone, but
Hmm.
it's not a person. It's
Hmm.
just a persona.
Hmm.
Like I could do a whole video on Sinners because Sinners had some of the purest sociopaths I've seen on camera in a while.
Yep.
But on a side note, if you watch the movie, one of the problems that happens is no one has the moral high ground to help each other's behavior out because
Hmm.
everybody is involved in their own shady deal. So I can't call you out to help you because I'm involved in this too.
Hmm.
But the problem of it is when we're all walking around with blinders, we all end up in that same problematic spot. And then we lose the point of having friends and having a community, which is you want to have people around you that want the best for you and want to protect you from problematic people. And then you can protect them from problematic people.
Hmm.
But practically, like what I thought was hilarious is almost everybody in this movie was morally bankrupt except a handful of children and the preacher. Yeah, I was like, man, it's rough. It was interesting. However, I was like, man, it's hard to root for almost anybody in this movie right here.
100%.
But we'll do a whole talk on that one
Yeah.
later.
We're not going to spend too much time on the slide. This is kind of a preview into what we're going to be doing in the future. But when we're actually trying to connect with somebody, where we're trying to discern whether we're compatible or not, whether we got the same life goals, what is our chemistry, what is this person about, there are certain conversation starters that we can have. And some of these might seem familiar, like movies, games, books. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite place to vacation? But I want to point out that the real wisdom in here is not what the person's favorite game or book is or movie. It's why and how they connect to it. It's the story behind it. That's really where we start to learn more about people, is why they connect to something. That gives you a deeper understanding of how they view the world and what their frame is. And we're going to talk about some aspects, especially from our different professional takes on this and our different experiences, but how to frame questions and how to really get to the bottom of who somebody is without giving them easy throwaways where they can figure out what you want and tell you what you want to hear.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yep. So As far as the recorded section goes for our prepared material, this is the end. We wanted to thank everybody for coming out on a